Hey y'all, good evening. What's going on? I'm just on here tonight, just a little porch picking. Y'all know how I do sometimes, my content be all over the place, but it's real. Tonight, I think I want to talk about family. I want to talk about family. I want to talk about your inner circle. I want to talk about your squad, like, your family or whatever. We all have family, whether we get along with the majority or we don't get along with the majority or whatever. I just want to talk about it because I just been thinking about family lately. If anybody knows me, y'all know I unfortunately lost my mom almost 7 years ago. And that's been a tough road for not only me but for my siblings and my daughter, niece, nephew, aunts, uncles, like cousins. Like, it's been hard, but I'm not going to go into that. I want to talk about family. I want to talk about how family is can be your biggest supporters or your least supporters. I love my family, right? I love my family or whatever. We don't always see eye to eye. We don't always get along. And my family sometimes can be really cutthroat. Like, you do something to piss them off and they like, I don't even want to deal with them no more. And I'm guilty of that myself. I'll get to the point where I just don't want to deal or be bothered with someone because of something they did or something they said. And in my mind, I'm thinking you should have known better because I would have never crossed you that way. However, I had to realize, and I'm realizing that everyone doesn't think the same, right? And there's only one me. There's only one you. So I can't expect me in you or out of you. And you can't expect you out of me. But I just said that. I said all of that because I'm just noticing like the dynamics of family, like how back when I was growing up, how family was very big and how family, no matter what, stuck together, right? I know I was on the phone with a good friend of mine, close friend of mine, the other day, and she was telling me, you know, about something that happened with one of her siblings or whatever, and they're not even talking. And I was like, and funny, the same thing happened with me and one of my siblings where we weren't talking for a week. Now, one thing about me, if I love you, um I'm always willing to work things out. And a lot of times if I get so upset with you because I love you so much, the next day or two, I'm kind of over it and I've forgotten about whatever the issue was and I'm ready to move on, But I know everybody is not like that, right? So me and my brother, we weren't talking. We had a conversation. I'm not going to go into details of what the conversation was about, but he took offense to what I said. And I said to him, but I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about every person in this subject. I'm talking about the ones that I dealt with in my experience. And my thing was to him, you can't tell me I can't talk about my experience or my experience wasn't real because not everybody is that same way. Okay, but I can, and I said something that he might not have liked, and we both agreed, okay, let's go ahead and end this conversation. And I wasn't doing it to be malicious or anything. I did it because I felt that I had every right to say that because I lived it. I lived it just as well as he did. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it and make like it didn't happen or it wasn't true just to pump up your ego or make you feel better about the situation because it is what it is. So again, like I said, I was talking to one of my good friends the other day, and she was telling me that her and one of her siblings got into it over whatever the situation was, and I was like, "Where was this?" And she said about 2 weeks ago. I said it must have been a full moon. I said because I got into it with not my brother, who I was just talking about, but another one of my siblings, my sister. And I just felt it was a full moon. And to be more accurate, 2 weeks ago, this at that time was more like the end of July, right? And so I realized, when she was telling me that her and her sibling, they're not talking right now, you know, because of whatever happened with them. And I'm like, well, me and my sibling, we're talking, but we're talking around what happened that particular night. And I was like, I'm okay with that because I'm over it. Like, I'm over it. I will address it again if need be. But for the most part, I'm over it, you know? But anyway, back to talking more in depth about, in general, about family. I realized, I just realized that, some things, one little mishap sometimes with your family can cause an entire breakdown in the dynamics. And I can honestly say I don't want to deal with anybody in my family at this point because I don't have time for the yo-yo. I don't have time to prove myself to you. My love is genuine. It's always going to be genuine, but I'm okay. I don't need to speak to or talk to anybody on my mom's side of the family at this point because, and when I say anybody, I really mean the immediate family because, like, what happened, I'm still completely unclear about the breakdown because I got it like secondhand news, and as much as I tried to make sense out of it, it never made any sense to me. Talking to my sister about it or whatever, and she even called me like a few days later after whatever happened, and she told me, because I think she understands or feels like I'm the more sensitive one and I take things to heart more. And she called me, and she's my baby sister, and she told me, she said, I don't want you to feel bad about this. You didn't do anything wrong. This is just the type of person this person is. And I explained to her, although it bothered me and it took me for a loop, and I was trying, like I said, trying to make sense of it, and I couldn't. But I also told her I came to the resolution where I was like, I'm not going to let this stress me out because I had already gone through so much. We all have already gone through so much. So for someone I love, respect, and honored to kind of just switch the damn tables like it was nothing, I thought about it, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people, family members, feeling like however they feel. I'm okay with it. I know how my mother, our mother, was. She loved everybody unconditionally. It didn't bother her to love anybody. She didn't love people under conditions. She didn't. But I see that was not an inherent trait. That's just who she was, because I never seen that with anybody else in my family on my mom's side. It was always conditions. And I realized, I know I'm not getting any younger. And I really appreciate knowing a person who they are really from the door, but I know that's not always going to be the case. So I know and a good friend told me this years ago, in order to know somebody, you have to deal with them. And let's keep in mind, a lot of my family members, I never dealt with them in the capacity that I've dealt with them in the past 7 years, ever in my life. So that rings true. In order to know a person, you got to deal with them. So after dealing with some family members, even though I always had an idea of the type of person they were growing up, because I grew up knowing my family. And it was one thing when you do things when you're younger and you don't know any better, but when you're grown and older and you still do things, okay, that's just who you are. And okay, then everything I ever thought of you is true. And it hurts when family kind of turns on you or whatever. But then again, it doesn't, because again, I always knew what I was dealing with. I was always hoping for the best, expected the best, and I guess I didn't really plan for the worst in this situation because of all that has been lost. And I said all of that to just say I'm good. And I see why, you see or you hear about a lot of people who don't even deal with their family. They go out and find their own people, people who they can relate to. They go out there and they find their own tribe, their own squad, My mom leaving us, was a very big heartbreak that's very much felt to this day. And some things just don't get old. You're gonna always feel that void, because no one can. I don't care. No one can ever fill that void or whatever. And it rings true now. And I think, honestly, because my mom is no longer here, it's easier for me to be like, you know what, I'm okay. I don't have to deal with your family. I don't have to deal with my family, And I'm not saying all. I'm definitely not saying all, because I love my cousins or whatever. I think we all have had to deal with growing up under the guise of, my aunties, their mother, my mom, or whatever. And I know everyone loved my mom because my mom was probably the most genuine person. What you saw was what you got. It wasn't put on to make it. Nah, it was none of that. It was none of that. But it is what it is. And like I said, it's unfortunate. Like I said, I didn't plan for it, didn't expect it, praying against it. But deep down inside, there was always like a notion or whatever. But that's all I want to say about that, you guys. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I talk about a lot of things, just whatever is on my mind or whatever. And I know, someone somewhere will understand and see and can relate to what I'm going through or how I'm feeling or whatever, because I'm not going through anything. And that's another thing, you guys. Life is too short. It's so important to enjoy every minute of your life as much as you can and not to worry about certain things, because I'm not worrying about a lot of stuff that would normally drive me crazy. I'm not worried about it. I take my emotions out of things. That's been a big help. And I just trust God. So, thank you guys. Have a good night.